and welcome to the first live edition of Pod by the Bay.
It's been a while,
I think
fellas.
so. I think it's the first live edition. We are Nathan Bondless this week. He's celebrating a family birthday at Disney World. I'm sure he's enjoying himself, but we figured since we're losing something by not having Nathan here, we'll give you guys something by being live. So we'll see what happens here. Gentlemen, USF is coming off a big victory over a potential playoff team from Tallahassee. It's a top 25 team.
Can I just give a big old hearty horns up to everybody in the chat? Everybody put your horns up. That's a victory for the first time in nearly a year, right, Steeg? I think you had the right number of days. And
164.
364. Wow, okay. Really pretty much right on. I choose to consider that a positive.
Yeah, winning is a learned skill. So it helps when you do it to do it more. So anytime you can win, that's a good thing. I think we've seen more recently, losing is not as fun. So take the wins as you can get them. And this is not so I'll ask you guys kind of what were your impressions of the game? I think the line ended up coming out late in the week and it was 18. A lot of the advanced numbers had it. I mean, SP Plus had FAMU as a favorite, and even Kelly Ford, who's another kind of advanced stat guy, had USF as only a 7-point favorite. We were going to take all the Ponderosa money and put it on USF if it was a single digit, but it ended up being 18. And they, as weird as the game was at times, they just about covered. So, what, Vito, I think you were there. What was your impression of the first home game in the Alex Golish era?
I was there with my buddies. Josh CC is in the chat currently. It's always good to get back out with the good old friends to tailgate and enjoy another season. Win or lose, it's always a victory at the tailgate, as they always say. The first play of the game was a tackle for a loss, and then FAMU proceeded to go down the field and score a touchdown. And it seemed like, is this going to be the old defensive woes? But then the defense proceeded to have 5 turnovers in the game. There's some eye-popping stats where if you're watching the game, you probably had some sort of preconceived notions of what you expected the score to be and what it actually was, how close it seemed to be near the end there. But you have a defense that had 5 takeaways. When's the last time a USF defense had 5 takeaways? You had a quarterback in Byron Brown have 5 total touchdowns, and hasn't been since 2020, so pre-Jeff Scott era. That's not true. Never mind. Hasn't been since 2020, Jeff Scott's first season. You know what? I completely forgot about the whole Jordan McLeod just going nuclear against UCF like that. I was like, it's got to be Quentin Flowers, right? Nope. Steeg was like 2020 UCF, 5 touchdowns. Incredible.
That feels like 15 years ago. At this point.
And that was the pandemic year, and it was all.
Remember the Jordan McLeod era? It's like, it was 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh! And now he's killing it for JMU. So the game, you know what? It's a victory. I choose to think of it that way. There were some missed opportunities, but you know what? I will take that as growing pains in this offense. The offensive line did have some injuries, so that also has to play into it. And FAMU's no slouch. They are a team with a very, very good quarterback who has preseason accolades, very good coach in Willie Simmons, who was rumored as a potential candidate for the USF job. So you don't know how much, that was kind of in their back pocket. And they might be a team that doesn't lose another game the rest of the year. At least against their conference opponents. So I choose to look at this. We can get more into the nitty gritty here, but my initial reactions were the team defense looked like it was flying. Offense was making plays at times. There's things that need to be cleaned up, but a victory is a victory. That's all I gotta say.
Steeg, I know you were really upset. You really wanted you were upset that they just barely won, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I was devastated. I was enthralled by everything. The thing about the game was at no point did I feel like Florida A&M was going to game. Like after the first play, I was like, the team, like the way that USF defense was lining up, the way that the kickoff return happened, and the way that they the aura around the team was, like, there's no way that we're going to lose. Even they scored on the first drive. Everyone knows, and Parker's posted that meme so many times, is everyone's first 10 plays are always scripted and they're always really good. And the first 10 plays by the defense, usually you're trying to figure out what the offense is going to be doing. So throw the first drives out the window every single time. Because after that, when changes are going to happen, you can't make changes on the fly on the first drive like that unless you call a timeout. So I at no point, even they took it to I think 24-17 or 24-31 or something like that. No doubt in my mind that USF was going to win the game. USF's game plan was a lot better than Florida A&M's game plan on offense. There were times that Musa had incredible plays, and the Florida A&M receivers made incredible catches, and by the hair of a cat, just they got the ball out and put it in a tight window. And I have to give credit to Florida A&M for doing that, but like against maybe someone who's a little bit less experienced, down the line, they might get a sack there instead, or might get batted at the line or whatever. And then offensively, you could see those plays developing and what they were trying to do on first down to second down, from second down to third down. There were so many just wrinkles to what the offense building off of that I never in my mind had any doubt about how that game was going to end up. I think they could have scored 60 points easily if Byron Brown makes a few throws here and there. If a guy makes a block on the edge here and seals it, and the running back makes the cut where he needs to. I mean, truly, I felt like we were that much of a better team that I was vibing the entire time. People around me were panicking when they scored and brought it within in the fourth quarter. I was like, listen, they're going to be fine. And then when they decided to go for it on that 4th down and 6 at the end, call your shot, do it. Win there, and lo and behold, they did.
Yeah, I'm with you, Steeg. I after kind of the first drive and when USF answered, I think they had a fumble on the ensuing kickoff return. I never felt like the game was in doubt after that. Like once they kind of answered back, and this is something Nathan and I talked about after the game. Almost every single time FAMU scored, USF immediately. I think there's one time off a field goal that it took 2 drives to answer, but a lot of times as soon as FAMU scored, USF would answer with a touchdown. So that makes you feel pretty good, and it never got to that really tight point. I think if most of it was like if you were really nervous and really anxious, it's because you're a USF fan and the last 4 years have been terrible. And when you get in games like that, you lose them. So I think that's where more of the anxiousness comes from. It's just it was a little bit divorced from the reality of the game. And like I said Saturday night, if Byron Brown hits a couple wide open passes that he just missed, or if Kelly Joyner is able to hang on to a pass that just went off his fingertips, or if Little John's able to kind of corral the passes off center, you're winning 28-7 with the ball going into the second quarter. Like it's a total blowout. Like you could be up 35-7 a minute into the second quarter. Like you had the ball, I think, in good field position when the quarter turned over. So, you didn't hit them, but it's early in this offense and early in the regime. So you're not too upset with that. But I never felt like the game was in doubt. Towards the end, I was hoping they'd run the ball. I was hoping they'd run the ball a little bit more. There was one point where Nick Wright had 6 carries for like 61 yards. Like, let's give him the ball a few more times, isn't it? And there was a lot of throws. So, but they consistently were able to answer back anytime FAM got a little momentum. So I think that was important, and that's important to see them overcome a little adversity too, right? It would have been nice, sure. It would have been great for them to blow somebody out by 70. Yeah, that would be great. But it's also nice to see them actually have to. You kind of, you might get the inverse this week, and we'll talk about that. But it's nice to see them overcome a little adversity, right? And I think through 2 games, you feel really good about this team in terms of responses. Because even against Western Kentucky, you go down the field and you end up throwing an interception, but you go down the field and they're about to tie up the game on the road, So I think you got to feel pretty good through 2 games where this team's at. And anything kind of surprise you guys from this game this week, or did it kind of go, as you guys thought it would?
I think the only thing.
Vito,
no. Or are we just going to stare at each other until one of us says it?
Oh, I lost you for a second. I was surprised how I won't say bad, but how they were very successful rushing the ball last week, and this week they didn't really get what was it, the 108 yards rushing. And it was 2 touchdowns, both by Byron Brown. But Michael Dukes, 13 carries for 40 yards. Naquan Wright, 9 carries for 37. Even Brown was 17 for 23. There wasn't a lot of success there, and it could be that they were stacking the box, so there wasn't much to be had there. But I think that was the most shocking thing, because I was kind of assuming that they would be able to have success running it or doing some interesting running plays to just kind of keep drives going, and that not being there was a little bit of a surprise to me. But when we look at the tape later, we'll see if that was they were daring Byram to throw the ball or whatnot.
Steve, what about you? What was surprising to you?
I think the only thing that kind of surprised me was I didn't see any passes over the middle. Right, like I can't really recall any dialed up like slants or crossers or anything like that. It was very one dimensional on the outside. It was, go routes, corner routes, and maybe you'd get a post. But Florida A&M did a really good job of stacking the box like that. And they put 7, 8 guys in the box almost every play. After the second quarter. After the first quarter concluded. And so I was surprised that they didn't try to immediately get the ball into the hands of a guy like Jaden Alexis, Nick Simmons, or anyone from, an outside guy running a slant, because it was there. I mean, for the most part, I think they ran it, once or twice. But that kind of surprised me. The coaches didn't feel like they needed to, or didn't have the trust to make those throws, because the linebackers weren't off, they were blitzing the quarterbacks, and that was given the offensive line fits basically all night. So it was weird. They didn't really have like a blitz beater. The blitz beater was them throwing a screen to the outside, and even then, by the time that the player that Sean Atkins gets the ball on the outside, essentially looking at him running right into a linebacker who's making the run over there. So I don't know. There just didn't seem to be a blitz beater in the game plan this week, which was strange, since we knew that they were going to put everything in the box at that point.
And that's my biggest question so far through 2 games with the offense. How are you going to handle blitz? They're not doing it yet. And real quick, I just want to say, I got my niece and nephew, Donovan and Kinley, are watching with my brother apparently. So he told me I wouldn't say hi to them, so I'm saying hi to them. If they're watching, make sure you guys are subscribed to this YouTube channel and like and comment to help us game the YouTube algorithm. I guess for everybody in here too. But yeah, the blitz is an issue through 2 games, and there has not been a real answer for it in terms of the passing game. So that is a bit of a worry. Now, I think we're kind of done with last week. A good win. This worry about blitz may not matter this week, as you've got a guy by the name of Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide coming into town. I don't think they're going to have to blitz very much if they don't want to. This is probably the worst case scenario, right? Coming into this game.
This is not. This was always a game that was going to be tough. Now you're getting not only a really good, well-coached, super talented team in Alabama coming into Raymond James Stadium. You're getting them pissed off after losing to Texas 34-24, and they're going to be reading their clippings all week about how everyone thinks how terrible they were versus how good Texas is, and how Alabama's defense is shot, and that Nick Saban is over. And I think they're going to take out some of their anger this week.
Yeah,
See,
I'm. We're trying to game this YouTube, so we do have the Nick Saban is over party as the title, but we did put the question mark in there for posterity here, because I don't know how over he is. Steeg, are you excited to see a very angry, very large Alabama team coming into Tampa?
I'm in the minority on this, where like it doesn't really matter what happened the game before. Nick Saban's been doing this for 20 years at this point. Like the guy has been so clinical in how he gets his team prepared week in and week out, that they, whether they lost by 10, whether they won by 20, whether they whatever they do, they prepare the same way week in and week out. Obviously, the players are going to come in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, wanting to right the ship in the right direction. But I also kind of I think all of them probably live in the reality of like, they're much more talented than the team that they're going to be facing. So, how much effort really kind of needs to go into it. This might be a situation where they might let up on the gas a little bit kind of early on to basically, hey, we don't need to press this much any further. It's not a trap game for them by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that, but I also don't think we're going to see Jalen Milroe past, the second quarter. I think they're probably going to pull him pretty early, depending on how this game is going. I think this is for Nick Saban and for his staff to kind of get the ship going in the right direction again. Do the things that they need to do right, which is going to be limiting turnovers, creating havoc plays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything in the Nick Saban school of coaching, and then start getting the depth guys in, starting more opportunity for these younger guys who are all still very talented, and go from there. But it's not gonna a pissed off Nick Saban team is the same as a regular Nick Saban team. They're gonna roll.
Yeah, that's probably true. One quick thought on the last game. We got a couple of questions on it regarding Bryce Archie coming in. Let me throw Nick's comment up here. Yeah, so Archie came in before the game. We heard somebody say that it looked like Byram had his hand kind of taped up when he got off the bus. And so we were on the field in the pregame, and you could see he had a pretty heavy tape job like around his hand and wrist here, right? And so we kind of watched it. He didn't throw the ball any different, but I'm assuming that got nicked or he wanted to get it taped up again, and that's why Bryce Archie came in. Once Byram came back in, you felt pretty good. And then he ended up making that touchdown throw at the end of the game to Naeem Simmons. In terms of Bohannon, he wasn't even there. He wasn't dressed. I didn't see him on the field, I don't think, at all, even in street clothes. So that would lead me to assume he's obviously not cleared because he wasn't even an option as like an emergency backup. Does that mean he won't be this week? I have no idea. So we'll see kind of where that's something we'll have to monitor. But he wasn't. I don't believe he was even on the sidelines this past week. If he was, I missed him, but he wasn't. I didn't see him out there in the pregame, at least. So I'm assuming he's still recovering or still making some adjustments. So I would be surprised if he played, because if he's a guy that if he's borderline, maybe you want to save him for a conference season if you feel pretty good with how he'll be able to come in and play. And that's kind of kicks off talking a little bit more about this game. Is what do you want to see in this game? Is it just health above all?
Yes. To me, yeah, it's don't get hurt. Like it sounds sad, and it's. I don't think my prospect on this changes coming off of like if USF was like 7-6 last year or something like that. I think the only way you scale Alabama is make sure that check clears first off. That check that is going to go directly into the truest fund, all the accruals of money that we're going to get it from the concessions and the stadium and everything like that. Do that, and then I'm sure no one gets seriously injured. Maybe get some young guys some playing time. I mean, these guys are all Division I athletes. Like let's call a spade a spade. Guys are Division I athletes. They all came from schools where they were the top dog competitors. These guys are just 4 or 5 stars, and our guys are 3 stars and 4 stars. So the talent disparity is large, but it's not like USF isn't able to compete. I mean, watching Middle Tennessee State play Alabama a couple weeks ago, they had some great throws, they had some great opportunities, they had some great runs. Their offensive line, did a great job of blocking. USF has they have wide receivers, they have quarterbacks. It's not like they're so incapable. This isn't like a peewee team going up against the New England Patriots in 2013 or anything like that. Like they can still compete, they can still play, but let's also live in reality in a second and say, just don't hurt. Maybe put up a few points here and there. Maybe catch them by surprise, do a few trick plays, some stuff you can set up for later. Score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Limit turnovers.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, this is, Vito, I'll ask you in a second, but, outside of health, you kind of mentioned it in terms of these guys are all competitors. You don't get to this level kind of not being a competitor. This is also like, if you're a USF player, man, what an opportunity. If you can go out and play really well, that's great. And then I get, yeah, maybe it's a goalish recruiting opportunity, as those guys are staying on the sidelines later. Like, hey man, you want to come play a little bit more? But yeah, I think that you got an opportunity there. Vito, what are you looking for kind of in this game? What would you like to see coming out of it?
Well, one thing I'll back up. This isn't like Arsenal playing a perennial powerhouse like Inter Miami. I just had to throw that out there. It's also for the players. You make a play, you get to say, you know what? I made a play on KoolAid McKinstry. How cool is that? Like, we say like don't get hurt, and our big thing is as like fans and covering the team. It's like you just don't want to do something where you're out there and then all of a sudden it then affects the rest of your season, especially as you're trying to build something. And if you're going to have some guys that are going to end up being program changers, you don't want them to get injured in this game and then turn around and some winnable games later on become losses. But, as competitors, these players want to go out there and they want to play. They want to say, I went and scored a touchdown on the first stringers of Alabama. Yeah, so what if it ended up being 38-7? Doesn't matter. We put up some points. Yeah. We got to do something successful. And, you never know if this coaching staff, can also show their chops and say, hey, look, we looked at some things that Texas did last week, and we were able to take some things that we knew Tennessee did last year. And we said, let's go ahead and give it a shot. Maybe you're able to make some plays. And then that also can give you a lot of good positive momentum. And Golish already said there's no moral victories. And none of us here kind of think that this is ever going to be one. But, it would be really, really great to see, hey, maybe they make a couple good stops. Maybe you see some players come out and make some good plays. Like that the UF game a couple years back at Ray J. It got out of hand really quickly. And then the defense made some plays.
Yeah,
and it kind of felt a little positive. Yeah. But like, hey, look what this team can do when they're really in it. So those are the types of things that I would look at.
That game popped in my head this week as well, just in terms of you had a couple, Florida was somewhat cruising, and then you had a couple interceptions, a couple of things go your way, you score a couple of times, and then you come out of that game feeling a lot better about yourself. But this is going to be a great measuring stick, I think, for this team and these players. If you go in there and can play, even if you end up losing by 4 touchdowns, but if you can go in there and show like some proof of concept for some of these things, or you can play pretty well and be a nuisance, then you have to feel really good about yourself going into conference play. Because Western Kentucky is a good team, but yeah, I mean that'd be cool, right?
How cool is that? Let's say you get one of those, in this offense. Typical flies down the end to Naeem Simmons, and all of a sudden you hit a 50-yard pass play. And maybe it's one of those just it's bang, bang, it happens. You caught somebody flat-footed. Doesn't matter. You get to hang that picture on your wall for the rest of your life. Stuff like that. And that's what makes college football fun, because this is like, it matters to these athletes more than, some others. And, don't pay attention to the end score, and whatever you do. And this is what I'm saying to the fan base, not necessarily everybody listening now, but do not take anything that you see in this game and think of it as a negative going forward.
Yeah. And
why would you do this? Why would you go for it on 4th down? Why would you do that? Like, I implore everybody to not do that. Don't do that thing.
Yeah. In a positive direction, I think one really interesting thing about this game is the timing of it. You have the Texas thing where, oh no, you're going to get a pissed off Saban, but they got to play Ole Miss next week. So, and then USF running kind of Tennessee's offense. How much did the Saban obviously I'm sure they spent a lot of time studying the Tennessee offense in the offseason, what they want to do to stop it. Are they going to show that against USF? I wouldn't think, right? They probably feel we can play our base defense and do enough. But what if you
base defense? Yeah.
What if you pop a couple on them because they're not doing much exotic? Then you just become a nuisance. And then once you get if you can get the game into the second half, who knows what happens? But I think Alabama will be able to play pretty vanilla and just. I posted it in our Discord. I looked it up after the game last week. The average weight of the Alabama offensive line per player, so just the starting 5, the average weight of those 5 guys is 339 pounds.
Yeah, buddy.
They are large.
That is.
Yep.
My goodness. What's the average weight of the USF defensive lineman?
It's
Not
considerably less.
339 pounds, I'll tell you that.
Okay, so here's the thing that, and we're just gonna talk shop a little bit. I know we're not trying to go super long, but okay, you're legitimately a 260-pound defensive lineman for USF,
Mhm.
and you got to go up against a bunch of, I think what they used to call them elephants back in the day.
Yeah.
And there are elephants because they're Alabama.
No.
What do you like? Is it just like I got to try to outspeed it? Like, can you imagine? I feel like that would just get exhausting after a while. Like I'm trying to get through a brick wall, it is not working.
Yeah, I think you hope
Should
you have a speed advantage, but the thing with I think both Alabama's tackles are probably like future NFL guys. So they're pretty athletic. That's why they're there. I think the Proctor kid was the number one. I believe he plays tackle for them. He was the number one offensive lineman in the country last year. Was committed to Iowa and then decided he wanted to score more than 25 points a game. So he switched over to Alabama.
25 points would be great for Iowa.
That's the goal, baby. The drive for 25.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's the really tough part is they're big and then they're probably pretty athletic too. Now, Texas was able to hold up pretty well against them, but they had some size as well because that was one of the things I looked at last week before the Blog Boy Roundtable, which if you're looking for that on this lovely Tuesday morning when you're probably listening to this, that'll be later in the week so we can get everybody on it, or most everybody on it. So yeah, Texas was big too. So it's not like Alabama's had a huge size difference over them and they overcame it. They're also large. So, I don't. This is really going to be interesting to see how does Alabama want to play this. Do they just want to get out of Dodge, win, get up a few scores and just kind of run it out? Do they want to work on things? Because they obviously need to work on some stuff, right, with their quarterback. Defense busted a couple times too. Do they want to work on that, or do they want to try to get out as healthy as possible before Ole Miss?
I think the best case scenario for USF is they just play Milrow and they say we're just going to run the damn ball and we're not going to show anything exotic. We're not going to try anything. We're just going to run the ball and do what we have to do because we don't want to show anything to Ole Miss because you think that Nick Saban wants to lose to Lane Kiffin next week, or like you said, Tennessee. There's a lot of good teams that now have tape on how to beat Alabama. And frankly, beat them soundly. Texas beat them soundly, especially on the offensive side. One thing I would really like to see, limit the turnovers. I'm not going to say, you're not going to throw a pick or have a fumble because I'm sure those guys hit. But if you can limit the turnovers and say you only have one, like that was great about seeing USF on offense. They didn't have any turnovers and they won the turnover battle 5-0. Not saying you're going to do that, but I think the best case scenario is they try not to do anything exotic. The worst case is they start bringing out multiple quarterbacks and just doing a lot of different things and different looks, and it works. That would be the worst thing. And then you start getting frustrated because I guess another part of this is like if you lose 65-0, what does that end up doing for your psyche moving forward? That's hard to come back for, regardless if it's Alabama or not, if it feels like you're off. Steeg, what do you think?
See, I part of me, because I talked with a player at the Portal Bay event and kind of asked him, I was like, hey, what's the overall vibe about playing Alabama this year? And all of them were looking forward to it. All of them wanted to seize the opportunity. And I mean, these guys are all, in the same mindset that Golich has been inflicting upon them since he got, since either these players got here or since he got there. And so for me, I don't think that there's a huge psyche of, what happens if we lose to Alabama, terribly? What happens if we throw 8 interceptions and have the most turnovers in a game in NCAA history or something like that? I don't think that the team is going to look back and be like, man, season's over. We lost to Alabama. I don't think anyone's going to think that. At least on the USF side of things. But I do think that they're going to be up to the challenge. I mean, the thing that I noticed about the Florida A&M game and the Western Kentucky game is how aggressive Todd Orlando and Alex Golich have been dialing up the plays. There's a size, advantage and disadvantage for USF here. I mean, for them, they can't just rush 4. They have to rush 5. They have to rush 6. They have to bring a safety blitz. You have to show multiple looks on offense. You have to, use pre-snap motion. You have to get these guys murking. You have to get them tired, even though they're going to be a very well-conditioned team. I mean, a 3:30 kick is going to be hot one way or another. you might catch a defensive lineman lacking first who thinks I'm bigger than the guy that's across from me. I can take a play off. All of a sudden, Mike Lofton seals the gap, and that's a 25-yard gain because Quan Wright is a former SEC player too. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for USF to continue to build that foundation up and show what the process can look like. But I also, at the same time, have been saying the same thing. You can't take anything from this game seriously past Saturday. Like, yeah, if Byron Brown throws right into a guy like in his chest and there's no other run, let's talk about that. But also, if one of their 5-star defensive backs just absolutely manhandles Nick Saban and picks it off for a pick 6 or something like that, out the window. I mean, what are you gonna do? I hope that US is able to game plan something to make them look competitive and competent throughout the game, but also it's Alabama, and they're gonna make you look stupid.
Yeah, a couple things from the chat. Somebody asked how big the Alabama D line is. According to this depth chart, looking back here, they have an odd front defensive line. They go 292, 328, and 302 across the front. And then Robert, while the negativity. So right now, USF is a 32-point underdog. Since 1997, underdogs of 28.5 to 35 points have won outright 1.9% of the time. So it's more, I'd say, more reality than negativity. It would be not unprecedented. They've won 20 games out of 1,055 games of that similar point spread. So it wouldn't be unprecedented. You're telling me Lloyd Christmas, you're telling me there's a chance. There's a chance, but not a
You know what
chance.
I'm going to say, though? Not many people go into Bryant-Denny and win at Alabama in the Nick Saban era, but that got broken last week. So you know what else can get broken?
That's right.
I'm all about this. Let's go. Let's get that optimism rolling. At some point, it's going to happen, right? And why not at a completely sold out Raymond James Stadium, which it looks like it is, with the 300 level? Why not, right? Why not?
Yeah, if you're going to pull a big upset, this would be the one to do it. So I don't think it'll be from lack of effort. I think USF is going to put a lot into the game. They're going to have some stuff schemed up. It's just, you are at a large talent disadvantage and large size disadvantage. And yeah, that's true. We got it's the sellout. Beautiful. I think they're going to do like a Bubba Gump shrimp section of the concessions at the new stadium just for this game. So there you go.
Alabama.
And we'll get further into this game on the Ponderosa later this week. Hoping to get somebody that covers Alabama on. If not, maybe we'll get a crazy Alabama fan. That might be fun too. But we'll have a more in-depth preview of the game with predictions, and then we'll also talk about this game on the Blog Boy Roundtable later this week. So thank you guys for joining us on Pod by the Bay. Join the Ponderosa if you want some inside scoops. For instance, Nathan Bond gave out the starting quarterback in August 22nd, 2 weeks before the game kicked off. We got some good stats in there in terms of numbers, snap counts, other things to look out for in terms of how guys are playing in certain situations and how often USF gets in these situations. And we'll have another one of those out tomorrow on the Patreon. So join the Patreon for $10 a month. You get an extra podcast, which we will be shooting later this week, and a bunch of extra content. Vito, anything to say about the Patreon?
If you're not a Patreon member, the Discord private chat is by itself good. That's the $5 tier. But if you do the 10 or the 25, you get that free. Not free. You get that extra podcast, and we do a lot of different things with extra podcast. Seth does film rooms. Sometimes Colin
film rooms
Sherwin,
part of the $10 tier as well.
Yeah. Sometimes Colin Sherwin jumps on and gives some really juicy information. Sometimes on the gamble variety, if you will. I think it's definitely a great value, especially during football season. Give it a try. See what you like. But I think the Discord benefit is great because a lot of people will have a lot of different information going through that Discord, and having that nice little chat it's definitely a huge benefit.
Yeah, Discord. You can join the Discord for free if you want, but we have a paid section that I think rivals probably any message board out there. It's definitely better than some that are out there and have been around for a while. We get a lot of activity. There's other boards that are kind of dead now, but we get a lot of activity there. It's a good place to talk to other USF fans. And then, like Vito said, $10, you get some more stuff. You get an extra pod, film room stuff, and then the $25 tier. You get to hear everything first. So, gentlemen, I think that's it. Steeg, I do want to ask you, and you can tell me if you can talk about this or not. Maybe I should private message you. One more thing. Let me private message you.
Oh.
While he's doing that, we also have a Substack for the written stuff. Steeg just put out a Fletch report, which is talking about all of the Olympic sports that happened in the previous week. So subscribe to that as well. That is 100% free. Some people have tried to give us money through that, and we tell them, no, that's the free stuff. So that's all free written stuff. And we'll have a lot more fun stuff planned through that as well. But Substack newsletter, the Bayer Examiner, check it out.
And I've never made a typo in it ever.
Never, ever. All right. We won't, we'll talk about what I asked Steve about behind the paywall. So, guys, thank you for listening. Please join us on Patreon and in the Discord. Thanks for listening. Leave a comment, share this with people, help us get into YouTube algorithm. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls, beat Bam, and Nick Saban party over.